right, let's dive into one of the greatest rivalries in all of history. We're talking about a conflict that spanned a century, a clash of titans that literally shaped the world we live in today. This was a battle that would decide the fate of the entire Western world. So, you gotta ask yourself, how on earth did a nation of farmers manage to defeat the undisputed masters of the sea? I mean, that was the question back in the 3rd century BC. You had two absolute titans, Rome, a power built on land, and Carthage, an empire built on the waves, and they were heading straight for each other. The answer to that question? Well, it would change everything, forever.
So, to really get a grip on why this war was just bound to happen, we've got to look at the two players in this game. Who exactly were they? And what put them on this path to an inevitable collision?
And man, what a contrast it was. It's like a classic tale of two superpowers. So in one corner, you've got Carthage. These guys were the descendants of Phoenician sea traders, which means sailing was in their blood. They were the undisputed masters of the Mediterranean, controlling this massive trade empire from key ports like Ibiza and Cartagena. Their power came from two things: their incredible navy and a whole lot of money, which let them hire huge armies of mercenaries to do their fighting for them.
Then, in the other corner, you have Rome, and they were a completely different beast. This was a republic of determined farmers and incredibly disciplined soldiers, a true land power. And as they started expanding across Italy, their real secret weapon became clear: this unbelievable sense of patriotism and grit. Unlike Carthage, their armies were made up of citizens fighting for their own homes, their own land. And while they had some treaties to keep the peace, you could just see their worlds getting closer and closer. Let's be real, the Mediterranean just wasn't big enough for both of them. And so it begins. The first big clash kicked off over the island of Sicily, and this immediately put Rome in a terrible spot. Here they were, a land power, suddenly forced to fight a war on the water against the best navy on the planet. Talk about a baptism by fire. Rome had to learn to swim, and they had to do it fast. And how they did it is just one of those incredible stories from history. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. A Carthaginian warship literally washes up on an Italian beach. What do the Romans do? They capture it. They take it apart, piece by piece, nail by nail, and they reverse engineer the whole thing. From that one ship, they build an entire fleet from scratch. And then, and this is the craziest part, they sail out and actually beat Carthage, the masters of the sea, at their own game. It's unbelievable. So Rome wins the first round. They get control of Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica, which is a huge blow to Carthage. But this kind of victory, this kind of humiliation, it doesn't end a rivalry like this. No, it just plants the seeds of revenge. The peace treaty was harsh, and it left Carthage bitter. They were beaten for sure, but they were already thinking about how to settle the score. And that quest for revenge, it wouldn't just be a national project. It would become the personal mission of one very, very powerful family, a family whose name would haunt Rome for a generation, the Barcas. This is where revenge gets forged, over in Spain. So you've got this whole Barcid dynasty. It starts with the dad, Amilcar Barca. He's a brilliant general who goes to Spain after the First War to carve out a new power base for Carthage. After he dies, his son-in-law Asdrubal takes over and really builds it into an empire. But the one everyone remembers, the one destined to be Rome's greatest nightmare, was Amilcar's son, Hannibal. He inherits his father's genius and his burning hatred for Rome. So all they needed was an excuse for round two, and that excuse came at a city called Saguntum. Now, this was a tricky situation. The city was technically in Carthage's sphere of influence, but it was also an ally of Rome. When Hannibal attacks the city, its people fight back with unbelievable courage, to the point where they chose mass suicide rather than surrender to him. That was it. That was the spark. It was the moment that lit the fuse for the Second Punic War. Now, with war officially on, Hannibal doesn't do what anyone expects. He doesn't wait for Rome to come to him. Oh no. He planned something so audacious, so completely out of the box that it's still studied today. This was Hannibal's masterpiece. He decided to take the fight directly to Rome's doorstep. And his plan was one of the biggest gambles in military history. Think about it. Everyone expected a sea invasion. Instead, Hannibal gathers his huge army of mercenaries and loyalists in Spain, marches them across the massive Pyrenees Mountains, and then he crosses the Alps. the frozen, treacherous Alps with soldiers and, get this, war elephants. He then descends into northern Italy, completely bypassing Rome's sea defenses. The Romans were in absolute shock. They never saw it coming. And once he's in Italy, Hannibal is just a force of nature. He wins battle after battle, but his crowning achievement was the Battle of Cannae. This is the stuff of military legend. Even though he was outnumbered, Hannibal used this genius tactic, a pincer movement, to surround a massive Roman army and just annihilate it. We're talking about a tactical masterpiece that's still taught in military academies. Rome was on its knees, closer to total collapse than it had ever been. But if there's one thing you need to know about Rome, it's that they just don't quit. Their resilience was their superpower. And just when it looked like all was lost, a new hero emerged, a young general who had the genius to match Hannibal. His name was Scipio, and he was about to turn the tables and deliver Rome's final victory. So here's the final showdown between these two brilliant minds. Scipio's plan was absolutely genius. Instead of just throwing more soldiers at Hannibal in Italy, which wasn't working, he did something radical. He took the war back to Hannibal's home base in Spain. He started capturing Carthaginian cities like Cartagena and Cadiz. Basically, he cut off Hannibal's supply lines. No more men, no more money, no more food. He was starving Hannibal's war effort from 1,000 miles away. And it worked. With his army in Italy slowly withering away, Hannibal had no choice. He was recalled to Africa to defend Carthage itself. So after all those years terrorizing Italy, the war was going to end on Hannibal's home turf. The final battle took place at Zama, and there, Scipio finally did what no one else could. He defeated Hannibal, ended the Second Punic War, and cemented Rome's place as the top dog in the Mediterranean. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? But it wasn't. 50 years go by, and Rome is watching Carthage start to get back on its feet, to rebuild its wealth. And the Romans just couldn't let it go. The fear of Hannibal, the memory of the rivalry, it was too deep. So they decided to end it for good. They launched a third war, but this one wasn't about victory. It was about annihilation. As the quote says, they set the city on fire for 17 days, destroying it stone by stone. And then they sowed the fields with salt so nothing would ever grow there again. It was total destruction. So that really raises a terrifying question, doesn't it? What happens when a rivalry is so absolute, so total, that one side decides the other just can't be allowed to exist anymore? That's the real legacy of the Punic Wars. It's a chilling reminder of what happens when war isn't just about winning, but about completely wiping an entire culture off the map. It just makes you wonder, what kind of world did we lose? What would our world look like today if Carthage, the masters of the sea, had won?